was contact with another car, we're told, but we've not seen which one.
Oh,
but,
I missed. I was fixing our TV at the time, and I lost everything on the screen. So, but it's back and up and running. I can proudly say.
But it's not like Andrew to make mistakes. Well, we're about to go racing, so stay with us, Johnny, because this is going to be quite a battle now. You've got Porsche versus Lamborghini versus Ferrari as the cars work their way out of the bus stop then, heading up towards the line. Paolo Roberti ahead of Peter Cox, ahead of Matt Griffin. We go racing once again down towards La Source. Now, of course, under that safety car, any warmth from the tyres will have disappeared.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And as I said, the drizzle is still coming down, I think, as we look out the commentary box. So obviously, yeah, it's a bit harder because obviously the circuit is a little bit cooler, but it won't take so long to get a bit of temperature in the tyres. And this is what this race is. These racing here in Spa is interesting because of these weather conditions we always have here. But of course, then it's down to driving it sensibly, not making too many errors, especially this early in the race, and then just getting into a really nice rhythm, and then actually basically the race really starts. It's going to start really when we start catching up the GT4 on the slower cars.
Well, I was going to say traffic becomes a big problem, doesn't it? And in a sense it's double-edged because it's as much a problem for you guys lapping as those being lapped. They've still got to make sure they know how to get out of the way and where to get out of the way, not get in the way, not compromise their own race.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see some of these lights on these cars are really, really bright, so they actually the GT4s actually find it quite difficult because the lights are on them all the time, but they're these new type of LED lights that are really bright, and it's very hard to actually judge how close the cars are coming up against you. So it's quite hard for those guys to really see where we are. But at the end of the day, they stick to their line, and normally it's not a big issue.
They've got this great traffic jam here for 13th place, headed by David Jones in the Mercedes, and you're riding now on board number 98, which is Marcel Fassler's Audi. The car now in 5th place, and of course they've all bunched up ahead of him under the safety car like this, so Fassler going very well. Yeah, well, again, it's going to be this, these cars are probably, some of them anyway, on slightly different tyres, and some different tyres actually warm up quicker than others, so there's going to be some who are going to struggle a little bit at the beginning. We saw a little shot earlier on where they were still warming up their tyres down the main straight, so it's just really going to be down to being very, very careful. They're so close at the moment, but at the end of the day, it's not taking too many risks, which is good. Which I see the number 11, one of our other cars, is doing okay at the moment. So it's just really now. That was a bit bold, wasn't it?
A little bit of a bold, yes, exactly. And it's just silly things like that that can sort of make such a a devastating effect on the race. And it's this early. We've got 23 hours to go.
That's right. That was Xavier Marson trying to be a hero, and he just about managed to hang on to it, but he's compromised his own run. He's now coming under pressure as well from Simon Knapp in the similar Z4 tucked up behind him. David Jones, though, here in the Mercedes, former British GT champion, 58 years of age, proper quick amateur racer, doing a very good job here of keeping the two McLarens behind him, and also one of the 911 GT3R Porsches, and their contact, look, because the two BMWs have tripped over themselves coming through the bus stop. Simon Knapp, I think, was the aggressor. They've all sorted themselves out on board with Richard Westbrook, but that just illustrates exactly what you were talking about. Silly things like that, which you don't need to be doing so early.
Well, especially that bus stop there, which is the last turn on the Grand Prix circuit anyway, is something, you don't dive up the inside this early. If it's a sprint race or something, yeah, maybe. But just got to think a little bit more sometimes, because the race is so long and you don't want to damage the car. You damage the car, and of course you've got to do another pit stop.
Indeed so, because in the meantime, Paolo Roberti...
The thing is, like we're seeing now, is that traffic, because you've got to slot yourself past them, but then you see that Ferrari there, he's not going to quite do it there, but he actually got a run. It's an Audi, actually, sorry. And he had a good run, that Audi in front of him, the black one. So they're having a good little battle, and now the race is starting to happen because of the back markers that are coming into effect.
And Matt Griffin, who is in 2nd place in the black Ferrari, number 50, he's going great guns, as you might expect. Matt, much underrated driver, but he's catching Paolo Roberti, who has made his name in GT cars internationally for a number of years. Then you've got Peter Cox in 3rd place. Peter himself, of course, vastly experienced driver, knows exactly what he's doing. And then you've got the leading Audi of Timo Scheider 4th, Stefan Ortelli now 5th, Marcel Fassler 6th, Mark Basseng is 7th, Mike Parisi 8th in the Mercedes, Olivier Panis is 9th, and Patrice Goillard is in 10th spot. And on the subject of spots, the spots of rain are increasing as now Matt Griffin goes for the lead at Les Combes. Good clean pass that, up the inside, Ferrari takes over the lead.
Absolutely, and this is really a new car, hasn't been out that long, but it's showing real pace. There is always the reliability issue that may come into play, but because it's that new, I think and probably believe that probably will have some sort of mechanical problem at some point, but it's showing such good pace very early on. We've got the McLaren here, which is obviously new and didn't have a very successful qualifying session, so the Ferrari at the moment is looking very, very good, but of course it's 24 hours and reliability is the key to this race. But it's good to see the pace.
I mean, we've seen them win 1 hour races, we've seen them win 3 hour races, but can they do 24? Now here you've got the Avon Shod Mercedes in the hands of David Jones, still hanging on to his place, and a different spec of Porsches behind. Richard Westbrook it is there, look, with the headlights flashing, trying to work his way into contention. But
there we are.
These two have raced against each other in British GT for a few seasons. Richard Westbrook, we know, is a real star in Porsches. Absolutely,
and he's a great driver. I do like his style. He's very aggressive with it, but he's someone who's very. He doesn't get himself into trouble very often. And I think we're going to see here in conditions now that look with the wiper going anyway, that it's going to be quite tricky to pass. Some of the cars again, because of these conditions, because it goes wide, that Mercedes, you think, there's an opportunity, but you go down it, and of course then it closes on you. So you've just got to choose and pick your place where you feel that you have a very good chance to overtake. But Richard, I'm sure, by the look of it anyway, pace-wise, he's going to get by, I think, shortly.
I mean, David Jones stacking them all up, isn't he, now? There's nobody in front, but there's this great queue forming behind David, who, as I said earlier, is 58 years of age now. He and his twin brother Godfrey share this car with Mike Jordan. They came out of rallying in the mid-90s to go into Porsche racing. They've been here with Porsches and with Ascaris in the past and raced here in British GT. And now David Jones doing his level best to keep Richard Westbrook at bay. And look, now Richard getting a bit grumpy about this, flashing his headlights, goes for the inside line. He should do it now.
Absolutely. Lovely move, as I said. I didn't think it was going to take him too long to do that. It's lovely coming here with you. It's like an encyclopedia. Wonderful, wonderful stuff.
Only 23 hours to go. The ANRAP pockets are full, you know, for this race.
True. On
board then with 76, with Claudia Hürtgen at the wheel, the former German Formula 3 racer, had her big accident at the Monaco Formula 3 race many years ago.
That's right, yep.
And that sort of derailed her career a little bit, but she went GT racing instead, former co-driver to Stefan Ortelli in the early days of BPR GT racing, and Claudia Hürtgen with another of the BMW Z4s that have proved this weekend to be really quick cars.
Yeah, they have. It's a bit like the Porsches. I know I was at I think a GT race in Paul Ricard, and the Porsche generally all year hasn't had a very good season, and then suddenly the speed that appeared, and again we're seeing it here. And the BMW equally so. That hadn't been quite as quick as we thought in Paul Ricard. Of course, they've come here, and once again, we can see a lot of the pole position went to a BMW. So I think she just slipped past there, I think, didn't she?
Just looking at David Jones, because he's not exactly being monstered by everybody else. They're not come flooding by. He's lost a couple of places, admittedly. There's the Corvette also working its way after its lengthy pit stop earlier on. Dominic Bouvier, number 6, the Lamborghini of Duarte Felix da Costa, glorious sounding car. Martin Rich's Porsche, by the way, that we saw leaving the pit lane a little while ago, has been given a drive-through for violating the pit exit red light. And number 42 has ensconced itself in a gravel trap. That's Michel Petit's Ferrari 430. There it is. And he's already had one spin, and now he's way, way off in the gravel.
I haven't seen that before. They're actually trying to pull it out.
Yes.
Which is quite interesting. I think that might be quite stuck.
A lot of Weetabix needed, or shredded wheat, to get the marshal strong enough to give them a pull that away. Right, now there's the Nissan going well in GT4, run by RJN Motorsport, Bob Neville's team. The car that Alex Buncombe shares with Jordan Tresson and Chris Ward. Jordan that came via the PlayStation Academy.
Yeah, absolutely. And interesting concept. You've got guys that play online on a PlayStation, and then they sort of go from that, say, virtual world, and then they actually come into the real world to actually then drive a race car and then hopefully sort of have a career. And Jordan's done quite a good job. It's been an interesting sort of couple of years that we've had. We had Lucas Doneth, who raced in LMP2 at Le Mans this year, so he was the first winner of GT Academy, and it's really good. We've got a British guy who won it this year, and hopefully he's going to sort of do a good job as well.
The battles rage on all the way around the circuit. Now, how does United Autosports sort out the rotation between the drivers? When do you get in, and how long a stint are you going to do? What's the plan?
Well, I can't really tell because we're live on air, and all the other guys will be listening in, but I'm fourth.
You're in fourth, right, okay. And it's a 65-minute stint, so each of you presumably will do 65 minutes as a minimum, let the next one in.
We're probably going to do double stints.
Okay,
I think Richard will do a double, then Zach Brown will actually get in the car. And Zach, because there's all this sort of gold, silver, bronze.
Yes.
I think platinum as well, isn't it?
There is.
A platinum. Yes. So I'm a platinum, I believe. And then Zach is a bronze. So he's our sort of slower driver, young driver that hasn't got that much experience. He's going to do one stint just to see how comfortable he is with the car, because typical Zach, bless his heart, he got in the car, we've all been trying to put the seat in one position, and he was quite tight with the steering wheel, quite close to his chest, and I saw him when we did some driver chat. I could see him moving his arms as if he was like putting it in front of the steering where his arms should be. I said, "You're not comfortable, are you?" He said, "No, I'm not." And then I said, "We should have said something yesterday." So we actually changed the seat this morning to actually get him comfortable, because we can sort of adapt ourselves around him.
Yeah.
So he's more comfortable. Mentally, he's actually better off. He'll do that one stint, as I said. If he feels comfortable, his next time he might then start doing doubles like us. We're going to probably do doubles all the way through.
Okay, right. Zach, of course, a bit like Richard, has quite a lot on his mind, because he's got to run the team, look after sponsors, look after guests, as well as be a race driver.
Absolutely. Well, he's got his BlackBerry mounted on the screen, so he'll be back with now, of course, yeah. But he's so busy. Obviously, he does a lot of stuff in Formula One and NASCAR and IndyCar, so he's a busy chap, and obviously he enjoys his racing.
Absolutely, yeah. Having been a career Formula 3 driver a few years ago, now racing for fun. Peter Cox, meantime, coming back at the Porsche of Paolo Roberti. So this is for second place, and it's starting to look a little bit damper out there. So the cars reel their way out of the bus stop. Peter Cox dives to the pit lane, and so also behind him comes Timo Scheider, and also coming in, Marcel Fassler. Pit lane gets busy.
Absolutely. Well, this is where this is that out of sync, where obviously the 23R8 of Richard Dean came in quite early. So this is where it's going to be a little bit busy in the pits, because obviously there's going to be more coming in. So this is where it will sort of go backwards and forwards for quite a few hours now from now on. But it's good to see how well Peter does in that Lamborghini. It's amazing how competitive they still are.
Indeed so. Now, drivers staying in the car, and all it is a case of putting some fuel in. They don't need tyres at this stage. So, as a driver, just sitting there, what do? Do you get on the radio and talk to the team, or do you just sit and wait and wait and wait?
No, well, in our car, and probably the same here in this Audi, there's a reset button that you press for the fuel. Mm-hmm. If you change drivers, you've also got different settings you have to do on the in the car that actually gives you the lap time, so the officials know who's actually in the car. Which driver it is. So we actually have to then put it onto our setting, and then, as I said, there's a refueling reset that we have to do as well.
So Peter Cox then making his way down the pit lane, and it's the long pit lane here, so he's gone through the F1 bit but has to stay within the cones and now go through the other pit lane. It must seem an aid before you get released back onto the circuit here.
Well, it is, because it's such a long way down this hill and you're only doing 60 kilometres, and it does take quite a while to get down there. So but all you can do is just make sure that you don't go over the speed limit, because obviously then you get a penalty of some sort, which is normally a drive-through or something. So yes, it's just sort of taking your time, and once you get just to the end under that Audi sign there, that is that white line, then you're allowed to speed up. There's a big bump just about there actually, and it actually does ground out the front of the car, so you have to be a little bit careful on that. And then obviously there's a little tiny bit of a chicane there, and they rejoin the circuit.
You've got to be fairly careful here still, because of course you've got cars in danger of cutting across you, and it's also now getting wetter and wetter. Not wet enough for wet tyres. As long as you've got some warmth in the slicks, you should be okay, but these aren't exactly ideal conditions, are they?
Well, they're not, and the strange thing is, actually, looking out in the direction these cars are going, the rain was actually coming from this side of the circuit, but it's actually the wind is blowing the opposite way. So actually here at the start finishing area is where actually it's raining, but it's moving the other side. So this side may be drier than what we've actually got at this end, but
I mean, that's one of the problems of this circuit. It's not too bad if it's wet. It's wet all the way around. It's wet here, dry there, drizzly somewhere else, and not knowing what to do. That's the real issue.
Well, and again, like those guys who've just come into their for their pit stops, it all depends what tyres they put on. They could probably have put slicks on, and then obviously the rain could get harder, and then they've got to pit again where some of the other cars haven't pitted yet, and then they will come in and just put the wets on, so they won't lose as much time. But that's really down to what the weather does, and it's quite constant at the moment, but it's not absolutely, I wouldn't quite class it as raining as such. It'd be quite tricky because, like you mentioned earlier on, it's the tyre pressures. You need that tyre pressure to get the grip.
Sure. Now the team's being told on the timing screen it is starting to rain all around the track, so they can get the message to the drivers who probably say, yes, I know that.
Yeah, exactly. But this is the far end of the circuit. Yeah. You look at the screen or the screen of the car, it doesn't look as if it's too bad on there at the moment, but you can see them all bunching up at the moment, and it's you've got to really be careful now, because obviously this is where it's tricky. Those curbs I mentioned before, you don't want to do as well. This is Blancpain coming up, which is a really quick corner. This is Blancpain coming up now, so that's a really nice quick corner, but it's very tricky in these conditions. As you see, one of the Aston Martins running a bit wide. You just got to be so careful. She's gone around the outside. See if you can stick it, no problem.
But the other thing is, the professional drivers can probably cope with these conditions. The drama for them is when they come across an amateur driver who's a bit hesitant and suddenly makes a mistake and compromises their run.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and that's what you've got to, as sort of professional drivers as we are, that's what you've got to try and look at.
Time yet, so number one, marooned in the pit lane and going absolutely nowhere for the moment. Stefan Ortelli, by the way, after the drive-through penalty, down into 19th place. So he got second and then slithers all the way down the ladder to 19th. Now Richard Westbrook comes in towards the bus stop, turns his way through. Is he going to pit this time? He is, and he comes. So this is the second stop of the race for Richard Westbrook. Remember, he made one under the safety car just for a quick top-up of fuel, and now comes down the pit road then. So 888 Richard Westbrook heads down the pit road, and that's going to give Marcel Fassler the race lead. So down they come. The team will be ready, and Richard Westbrook then, having done a good stint in that car, goes past the Aston Martin of Thomas Enger, and the Porsche that Richard put into the lead of the race then. He's based in the endurance pits, so he's got to go through La Source on the inside and then drop downhill. As in the meantime then, Fassler, Scheider and then Thomas Jaeger will become the top three. We're on board with Richard as he gets himself ready for the pit stop. Does all the necessary adjustments to seat and to intercoms and to everything else, drinks bottles in case he's going to get out of the car. Should be, I would imagine, a driver change this time, so trying to minimise the time lost in the pit lane for doing things like that and get that done out of harm's way early on. Now he just goes past the Ecuriacos Aston Martin that we saw Ollie Bryant pit with early on in the race. That's back into the pit road as Richard Westbrook vacates the cabin of the Team Manthey Porsche, and the team goes to work to clean the windscreen. And that, I'm afraid, is the Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof Lamborghini, and that's coming into the pit lane by the look of it. So the Lamborghini has had a big accident and it's damaged the barrier. Look, you see the way the barrier is folded down, but that's coming into the pit lane. We'll get a safety car because of that for sure. And 25, 17th place it was. Nicky Meyer-Melnhof at the wheel of the car jumps clear. The car is very badly damaged indeed. He's okay, which is the good news, but you can see the amount of damage, and Meyer-Melnhof pretty distraught about all of that. So we heard Albert von Thurn and Tapsis on the grid talking about their chances, and I said if they keep out of harm's way, keep out of trouble. Well, I'm afraid that they haven't kept out of trouble. The marshal's trying to right the car because, of course, that is currently blocking pit in, and under a safety car you're going to get people that want to come in, so they've got to thread their way around it. Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof, despite the fact he's just rolled, is eager to help the marshals try and right the car. Crash. More damage is done. Rear wing flies up. The wiper works. That's the good news, I suppose. So what was an immaculate symphonic-sounding Lamborghini is now scrap, and Meyer-Melnhof puts his head back in the cabin. But there, rejoining the race, is the 888 Porsche, now with Christian Menzel at the wheel of it. So you've got the two gun drivers doing the first two stints there, Richard Westbrook and then Christian Menzel, as we have our second safety car period of the race. And this time it's again for a car in the pit lane. We had poor Andrew Kokori's accident at La Source, where the two pit lanes join effectively, and now Meyer-Melnhof having gone off at the bus stop but crashing into the pit lane. So once more safety car, once more we'll get people pitting like this, and 888 did lead when it came into the pit. Christian Menzel, but Marcel Fassler will have moved himself through. So 98 now leads the way from 33 Timo Scheider, and then 35 Thomas Jaeger up into third place. When cars have accidents at Spa, they have accidents. We can see yet more damage for teams to worry about. That's another retirement, I'm afraid, and it's going to take a little bit of shifting from that. How it got there remains as yet a mystery, but it's dropped liquid everywhere. The car itself is badly damaged, not just the bodywork but the suspension and everything else. 42 has pitted, Michel Petit out of 46th place, and the safety car has picked up, not the race leader, but has been scrambled and collected the first available car, really. And what tends to happen is that the race director will then, once everybody is fallen up behind, get the cars in the right order. So Thomas Jaeger, 35, pits. Comes then now into pit lane. Paolo Roberti comes in by the look of it. Andrea Bertolini comes in. One of the United Autosports Audis is in. Also, Alex Buncombe has come in. Yeah, 11, the Audi of Matt Bell. You heard from his elder brother Rob, who's on McLaren duty. Matt, former Ginetta racer, drives for the United Autosports Audi team. Gets out of the car, in fact. Driver change there you can see going on for car 11. And what about Andrea Bertolini? I think he's going to stay. Is he behind the wheel of number 2? Looks like he is. So Andrea Bertolini, having got that car from its pit lane start into contention. How's the other pit starter, Fred Makovic, doing? 19th place he's in at the moment. So Fred Makovic 19th, and he'll gain places, of course, while we've got them serving pit stops now in a safety car like this. So once again, everybody slows down, tyres start to lose temperature and pressure, and more for the pit road, including there the BMW Z4 of Xavier Marson. All cars being told to increase their speed to catch up with the safety car. The race director doesn't want any stragglers this time around. Tyre change for Bertolini, the Vita 4.1 Ferrari that runs on Michelin tyres. And Andrea, who was a 19-year-old, who was Ferrari's youngest test driver, kart racer, started his GT career in Porsches before he switched to Ferrari, and was then seconded to Maserati, where he was a key part of the MC12 development project and race projects, and with Maserati Corsa and then with Vitaphone Racing, had great success in GTs, both in the FIA GT Championship and then the GT1 World Championship, which he won last year. So that car gets back into the race, loses places, of course, while we have the pit stops under the safety car like this. There's 32 in, which Stefano Ortelli has brought down the pit lane just recently for a drive-through. Now makes the driver change, and the car that he tagged earlier on just goes down the pit road as well there, 35. Thomas Jäger's Mercedes. So as we get towards the end of the second hour of the race, our second safety car period, and with drivers only being able to do 65 minutes between pit stops, because that's the regulation, to do 65 minutes only on a tank of fuel, to try and equate the balance really between those cars with the slightly smaller fuel tanks and those with the larger long-range fuel tanks. Now everyone taking the opportunity to top up the fuel. So what this will now give us is 98, the Audi that Marcel Fassler started, and Andrea Piccini now drives in the lead from Timo Scheider, and Peter Cox up in the 3rd place, Thomas Jäger staying behind the wheel of the 4th place Mercedes, and into contention now in 5th Gianluca Roda in number 9, and then Andrea Bertolini is in 6th place, or was in 6th place before his pit stop in number 2 Ferrari, but it'll all shuffle its way around till the end of this next lap. So still quite a few cars to get themselves back out after this most recent pit stop. A couple of cars being told to quicken their pace and they catch up to the safety car. There in the pit road is the 1-2-3 Armand Fumal Porsche that we saw driving over bits of bodywork a little while ago. Armand Fumal sharing the car with Christian Lefort, Carl Rosenblatt and Jérôme Thierry. And now it's the queue at the end of the pit lane as they wait for the crocodile of cars to go by, and then they can join in. Lotus Evora leads GT4 at the moment, car 70, which was started by Eduardo Piscopo, and that therefore has just moved itself ahead of the Nissan. Alex Buncombe was the leader of the class, Bob Neville's team, a little while ago. So we've got lots of drivers all waiting to rejoin the race at the end of the pit lane, and in the meantime the Audi drivers waiting for their cars to come in. Timo Scheider has just pitted, so Matthias Ekstrom ready to take over. Timo Scheider, a former Spa 24 winner, gets out. Matthias Ekstrom gets in, and although he's not done the Spa 24 hour before, he's done the Nürburgring 24 hours 6 times, so he knows about long distance racing. Easy to typecast him a little bit as just a DTM specialist, but there's more to Matthias Ekstrom. Good to see him in this sort of racing, in fairness. And at Milner Motorsport, pit stop is completed. Those cars that were at the end of the pit lane are now being released, so the track gets busier once again, and Peter Cox, who has stayed out, now leads the race. Number 24 Lamborghini, and pit stop is not complete for Milner Motorsport because that car's got a problem, and it's heading into its garage by the look of it. That's 1, 2, 3, that's the Armand Fumal car. so they want to have a look at it away from the pit apron. Kamal brought it in. There's Matthias Ekstrom's car ready to rejoin. Ekstrom sets off, but there's a lot of traffic ahead of him. Check your transponder is the message for the drivers at the end of the pit lane there, and the reason, as Johnny Herbert was suggesting when he was up here a little while ago, is because the transponder has 4 settings and it needs to be in the right position, so the race officials know who is driving a car at a given time, because you've got to give drivers a minimum and a maximum time in the car. So if it's not in the right place, then you may end up giving the wrong information that could cost you penalties or even exclusion, depending on the amount of time drivers are shown to have been behind the wheel. It's caught a glimpse of the number 1 Vita 4-1 Ferrari coming out of its garage there, many laps behind now. That's the Van der Poel Blancpain car. Got to rejoin the race. So with 22 hours and 5 minutes of the race to go, we're under the safety car, almost at the end therefore of the second hour, and as the field turns its way out of Eau Rouge towards Macon, the field, of course, with some cars you just got a glimpse of rejoining from the pit lane, now starting to blend back in against those cars that have been on a flying lap. So the order continues to shuffle its way around, but Peter Cox staying out, still leads the way. There's the Aston Martin that we saw stopping a little while ago, Peter Van Oudenhoven's car. But whether that's going to be able to get back to pit lane, I'm not convinced. But of course lost many laps now, lots of time has been lost by that car as well. So Nicholas Mar-Melnhof, okay, as we saw, out of his car. And whilst the debris moved and the pit lane entries cleared, so we are behind the safety car like this. Stefano Ortelli's Audi having dropped places after that drive-through penalty, now handed over, and 32 now with Bert Langin at the wheel, 21st place. For the VDS team there, the Ford Mustang, great charismatic car that, and it's good to have a couple of Ford Mustangs on the grid, including the car of Marc Douay, Jean-Michel Martin and Eric Bachelard. Good to see Eric, now based in America, having been the owner of the Conquest IndyCar team, racing here. So looking down onto the old pits, and then Eau Rouge, the cars climbing uphill. Peter Cox's Lamborghini goes through. Safety car period, the field having become a little bit strung out around the circuit, so you can see that quite a few cars are going to need a bit of encouragement to catch up to the crocodile of cars before we get the race back underway. Now let's catch up with what's going on at Vita 4-1 Racing, because we managed to track down Michael Bartels. He's in the pit lane, so is Haley.
Michael, it would look like that Andrea is losing a little bit of pace. How is the 458 performing?
Okay, we immediately double stint the tires, so in the end of the second stint he was not so competitive. Now we changed the tires and he remained in the car, so we will see how it's going now. The cold temperature not really in our favor, let's say.
And what was the reason for car number 1 being in the garage?
There was a problem with the power steering, and they fixed it now. It should be okay. There was no report from Nico. But it was, of course, a shame, you know, to lose so much ground in the first 2 hours of the race. But we never give up, and we try to bring the car to the end.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's the proper 24-hour spirit there from the player-manager, Michael Bartels, who walks back into the garage. So, yes, number 1, way down the order, but with its power steering problems hopefully now cured, back into the race. And that car, number 1, let's just double check, is now 61st, and it has done 18 laps, whereas the race leader has done 40 laps. So that shows you how far behind it is, but if others have problems, it can creep back up the order. Won't get all of those laps back, but as long as it's there at the finish, then it may have a decent result. But I'm afraid Eric van der Poel is not going to score another victory. He's had 5 Spa 24-hour wins, not going to be a 6th this year. Let's catch up on what's been happening so far, though, in the Total 24 Hours of Spa. A very busy 62-car grid here, with, before the race began, the Audi engineers looking at car 99 of Marc Bassin. There was lots of potential, of course, for the Marc BDS team on the grid, with Maxime Martin starting on pole position. As the snappers got ready for the start of the race, with such a big grid, there was always going to be drama early on. And as the cars worked their way up towards Les Combes on the rolling lap, getting warmth into the tyres, they were finally unleashed, and it was Marc Goossens from second on the grid who got the best start and worked his way round Maxime Martin's BMW to take over the race lead. Peter Cox slotting into 3rd place ahead of Paolo Roberti, and then Ludovic Sunier running 5th in his Porsche. Richard Westbrook was busy, but he lost out on the first corner to a flying Sunier, who then ran out of road, run over the curb, and Richard Westbrook had to go back at him on the climb up the Kemmel Straight. Up front, though, Sunier tried to take 2nd place off Cox, got through, missed his braking point completely, bounced over the curb, bounced off his teammate, and cost both cars a chance of a good result. Sunier had to limp on for another lap with a punctured tyre, but with steering and radiator damage, so Goossens headed straight for the pit lane. The car fell way, way down the order. Richard Westbrook managed to get himself into contention, had this moment at Les Combes and slipped back down a place. Andrew Kikodi had his monster accident at La Source after he tagged the BMW of Wolfgang Haug. He hit the barrier on the outside and on the inside of the circuit. We had our first safety car period of the race. It was a lengthy extraction process. Andrew complaining of some back pain. He's gone to the hospital in Verviers just as a precautionary measure. The car destroyed, but Andrew is understood to be okay. Paolo Roberti led on the restart with Peter Cox behind him. Matt Griffin 3rd in the AF Corsa Ferrari. Roberti tried to build up an advantage, but behind him, Peter Cox just would not go away. There was fun and games amongst the BMW Z4s coming out of the bus stop. More contact, more places lost, but thankfully no lasting damage. Simon Knapp, the rather aggressive driver involved in all of that, was able to get himself up one place as Richard Westbrook charged his way into contention. He pitted early and eventually got the 888 Porsche into the lead of the race, but before he could do that, he had to work his way not just past Claudia Hürtgen, but also past the rather wide Mercedes over the route out of David Jones. That he achieved, as Peter Cox also picked off places going around the outside of Mike Hesemans in traffic. Andrea Bertolini was rather busy gaining ground and trying to keep Thomas Enger at bay as he worked his way past back markers. The traffic got well out of the way, courtesy of missing their braking point. Rob Bell brought the 58 McLaren into the pit lane, complaining it didn't feel quite right. The car was wheeled away as a precaution. But Stefano Ortelli made a move for 2nd place on Thomas Jaeger. The move worked, after a fashion. Ortelli got a drive-through penalty for that, fell down the order as a result, and stationary out on the circuit was Peter van Alphenhoven's Aston Martin GT4 that expired at Les Combes. And then, just at the end of the 2nd hour of the race, so Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof had this big accident, as yet unexplained, coming through the bus stop, demolished the barrier near the pit entry. He's okay, the car isn't, and so out of the race is Meyer-Melnhof, and that's why we are behind the safety car. The team manager of 25, that shattered Lamborghini, is now being summoned to the race director. So I think we might start to learn a little bit more about exactly what's gone on for Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof. Whether he did it on his own, I find hard to believe. It does rather feel as though there might have been another car involved in that, and if Nicolas was being a little bit ambitious, shall we say, in trying to get past traffic, it may have been contact between him and another car that launched him off the circuit. Well, at the end of the 1st hour, it was Matt Griffin that led the way. At the end of the 2nd hour, it's Peter Cox who leads the way, having been there or thereabouts all the way through. Peter in the Lamborghini. Now the race order again looks a bit confused under the safety car. It didn't pick up the leader this time, but there is the leading car, 24, the Blancpain sponsored Lamborghini that Peter Cox shares with Jos Bentham, the winner back in 09, and of course with Mark Hayek, the CEO and chairman of Blancpain. And Mark, an increasingly rapid racing driver these days, so it's somebody else that I think is going to be worth looking for when he gets his stint in the car. But you would imagine that Peter and Jos Menton will do the bulk of the work in that because they are the quicker two, but Mark Hayek will need to do his minimum time. He's a bronze driver, that means he's got to do 6 hours in that car. The 32, which is Bert Longchamp, being told to quicken his pace to catch up with the safety car because at the moment it's causing a bit of a bottleneck. Now here the cars are coming up towards the bus stop. We've still got cars just going over the start and finish line into La Source, not that far up the road, so clearly the field now very strung out around the circuit. Part of the problem, of course, in that is that people make pit stops and then drop out of sequence, but there's quite a few here that need to try and quicken their pace and make one long line of cars. So there's the race leader, that's Peter Cox in the Lamborghini. The Dutch driver having already taken part in 3 Lamborghini Trofeo races this weekend. It's a glutton for punishment, is Peter. The best lap of the race, incidentally, has been done early on by Paolo Roberti. He did a 2:22.6 early on in the race. Peter Cox on the radio to the team, giving some feedback. A rather animated conversation by the look of it. He turns his way through La Source. That car a long way clear at the moment of number 98, which is running in second spot. 98 at the moment, being driven by Andrea Piccini. And because Piccini is in the second wave of cars, he's being rather badly held up. The lead gap is increasing all the time. So at the moment, Peter Cox turning there out of Eau Rouge. We've yet to have the second place car come across the timing line. And it will do so, hopefully, shortly. And the lead gap is extending all the time. 54.8 seconds it is, because Andrea Piccini is in that next wave of cars and is being rather badly delayed. Well, we've seen what was a Lamborghini now reduced to its component parts by Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof. Let's hear from Hans Reiter, the man behind the team. He's with Haley.
Hans, can you let us know what happened with Nicky and if he is okay?
Yeah. Seems to be was a bit aggressive on the pit entry and put the car on the wall and was like the car is on the side. It looks like we can write this car off totally. So it's bad for 24 hours. I do not really know what to say. You know, it's a 24-hour race and we destroy a car in the pit entry. And that's a unique thing, I think.
Well, why did you not stop car number 24?
Why did I not stop? Because it's now pace car and we can extend our running time from 65 minutes to 70 minutes. And we're hoping to have then one pit stop less at 12 hours.
Thank you.
All makes sense. So the strategic brain of Hans Reiter there, working that out to just go a bit further. So if the safety car is out, you can go a bit longer on the fuel, under the regs. And that was, once upon a time, an immaculate Lamborghini. And it is a very valid point that is made. How you can be going so quickly is to crash in the pit lane with 22 hours still to go. It does take some doing. Drama's there surrounding the VDS Ford Mustang 85. Jose Clos was the start driver in the car that he shares with Benjamin Bailly, Julien Schroyen and Rafael van der Straten. And that's in the fast lane of the pits, isn't it, where they're working on that wheel? And I'm not sure the race director's going to like that. It's at the end of the pit lane, in the fast lane, it's up on its jacks. So that really would be out of the way, I would have thought, and graphically illustrated, but I'm not sure that the race officials are going to take too kindly to this extra pit stop in the fast lane, because if another car comes up behind, it's therefore going to be a chicane. So that's falling down the order. There will be a Porsche look in the background there to be released fairly soon. Be able to work its way round that car, but this work should not be being done here, that's for sure. And the problem seems to be either a loose front left or the wheel didn't seat properly. So, are they done? Are they happy? Comes off the trolley jack. Right, the car should be able to rejoin now. But it's made the team look a bit orderly, I'm afraid, having to do that at the end of the pit lane. So, Peter Cox leading the way. And the Lamborghini, then, as we now know, being able to go a little bit longer under the safety car on this fuel. Engine fires up on the Mustang. And we wait for that car to rejoin the race. Rafael van der Straten, I mean, just taking it over, incidentally, and just gets going before the Porsche in question needs to worry about getting past. Just released right behind it there. So we're into the third hour of the 63rd running of the Spa 24 Hours. With the fire marshals poised trackside, if needed. The medical teams who did have to look after Andrew Cacotti after that very big impact at La Source. But very, very disappointing situation for McLaren. Their lead car, not just out of the race, but virtually destroyed. Matt Griffin, you just got to look at there, number 50, down in 21st place now, having done its most recent pit stop. And the car now being driven by Jack Gerber. Very imaginative helmet design there, you can see. And it's 24, ready for a pit stop. So Mark Hayek and Jos Menton, who are the other two drivers of that car, will relieve Peter Cox shortly, but Hans Reiter explaining exactly what the plan is. And 24 then continues to hold sway with Andrea Piccini on that lead lap but a long way adrift at the moment. Then in third place is 888 Christian Menzel. In fourth place now is 99, which has been taken over by Christoph Hasse. In fifth place is still at the wheel of number 2 Andrea Bertolini. And then in sixth place, number 33 now, Matthias Ekström. Seventh is car number 9, which is now Gianluca Roda. In eighth place is 35, which Kenneth Hyatt has now taken over from Thomas Jaeger. Ninth is 15, Anthony Kumpen, having taken over from Mike Hesemans. And in 10th spot is number 3, which is Julian Rodriguez, having got on board the Epsis AMR Aston Martin. So again, behind the safety car, teams taking advantage of this to make their pit stops. And 924 due a pit stop imminently. Fans in the grandstand opposite the oval pits, keeping tabs on the race, keeping tabs on what's going on in the pit stops, and if they stand up and look behind them, they can keep tabs on the off-track fun and games. You've got a big trade village behind the stage of the pop concert, and the so-called sexy car wash that goes on as well during the evening here at the Spa 24 Hours. Alternatively, you could just head for your tent, couldn't you? Get a bit of rest. And those tents are for the marshals down at the bus stop. They're not for the fans, but the officials who've got to be near to their post throughout can take a few steps away, get a little bit of sleep, and then be back on post as soon as they need to be. So the race continues under the safety car, which will be in at the end of this lap. We are told Peter Cox leading Andrea Piccini, and then Christian Menzel in third place in number 888 Porsche that he's taken over from Richard Westbrook. And the Porsche run by Olaf Manthei's team with Mike Sturzberg, who goes pretty well in the VLN races, and then Hans-Guido Riegel to take over. Well, we're about to go racing once again, and with the safety car not having collected the leader, you've got a handful of cars there running out of sequence. However, the race leader Peter Cox comes in this time, so as the race restarts, I think I'm right in saying that the leader is in. He is at the end of lap 43, and this now gives one or two drivers, of course, a chance to try and get into contention. So there is the Blancpain sponsored Reiter ran Lamborghini in, and that was 70 minutes done, so 65 unless the safety car comes out, then you're given a little bit longer because the fuel load is not being burnt as quickly. Well, there's Christian Menzel now getting himself into contention, but Andrea Piccini will take over the lead of the race in the 98 Audi. Christian Menzel will go second, and up into third spot should come 99 Christopher Hasse in the second of the Phoenix Run cars. Christopher Hasse, the former German GT racer, the European GT3 champion a couple of years ago. So Peter Cox has done a very good first stint. He gets out of the car. There's Jack Gerber, the South African, having taken over from Matt Griffin. And look how crowded it all becomes once the safety car peels out of the way. In the middle of all of that is the new race leader Andrea Piccini there, having worked his way through the first sector. So 98 Audi leads there, 888. The Porsche going well in the hands of Christian Menzel. And has the Porsche gone by? He has in the traffic, so Menzel has gone past Piccini as well now. The Audi drops back behind. He's also going to be careful of the Lotus there. The Piscopo and Mansell driven GT4 Lotus pulls to one side. We've also got the Kyriakos Aston trying to work its way through there as well. So Christian Menzel it is now then, who is up front. Mark Hayek, having taken over from Peter Cox, goes down the pit lane. And with the race back underway there in 32 is Bert Langin down in 19th place. That drive-through penalty for Stefan Ortelli didn't really do them any favours. Stefan should have known better, I think, than to try something like that on Thomas Jaeger up at Lake Colm. It didn't pay off for him, and so Ortelli with the drive-through pulls down the order. It's up to Bert Langin, another experienced driver now, to try to work his way back up the order. And a replay of how Christian Menzel got the advantage came very rapidly through Eau Rouge on this restart lap up the Kemmel Straight. Andrea Piccini ahead.